this data item, we are going to give this value to this particular action, right? So this value we are passing here. Instead of hard coded values, we are assigning this parameter value. Okay, that's fine. So we created a parameter here, but how come the value will come to this parameter in a start, right? So this one, so where you are calling this amount action, there we need to assign a value for this parameter, right? It's happening in your process studio. Those things we are doing it in process. Come to here, see this, double click on, okay, 1 second. So before that, so we have done some changes here. We need to save it, save this one. Come to process studio. If the changes need to be reflected here, what we need to do, we need to refresh it here, double click on amount and observe this amount. We need to assign a value for this, right? Now where you have a value for the amount, you will have a value for amount in your collection data, right? If you want to use any field name from the collection, what you have to do, collection name dot field name we have to use, right? Same way during the runtime, it will get the values collection name dot field name. We have to give it here, collection name dot, what will be the field name in your Excel file, amount. This is your field name. The same thing it will come there, right? So we are going to give that dot amount. That's it. Now whatever the value we are giving from the collection dot amount, this value it will assign to amount. It will append to amount. When you are before executing the action, amount action, this value will go to this amount, and then the same amount, so it will be come here in a object studio. In a start page, the value will come to this, whatever the value will come to this amount, the value will store it in a data item. The same data item value we are storing in a the right option, we are giving to the right. The same way we need to do it for input currency and output currency also, right? Click on the input currency. We need to create input parameters for this as well. Click on this. This is for input currency format, and then this one will be text, and then store it in input, and whatever the value will come to this input, so you have to give it here instead of hard coded value input. Click OK. Same way we will do it for output also. Output currency, add out, and then this one also text output currency format, and then out. So whatever the value will come to output currency, so we have to give it to this one. Now we'll remove these values. Now after that, do you have anything for convert? We don't have. So what about the result? Result already we have a so created output parameter to see the result, right? So we can so use the same thing. Okay, so now save this one, save it, come to process studio, refresh it. Now so amount we have done. Now double click on input. Observe this input. From where you need to give again data dot we have to use column name data dot. So what is the column name here in Excel file? So your input currency format, control C, input currency, right? Now click OK, and then same way output also we need to give the value again data dot output currency format. Sorry, this one is for output. Output. Same thing. Okay. Output. Next. So we are going to get the result. This result where you need to store. If you observe, the same things it will come to your collection, right? Again, we are going to store the result into result back to your collection field. Once you get the result back to your collection field, you can do whatever you want. So you can again write it back to collection, or if you want to give it to some other application, you can able to do that. So or you can able to save in a separate Excel sheet, right? We can able to perform that. So our intention is first we need to get the result and we need to write it back to into your collection again. So whatever the result you are going to get it here, that result, so here, so this is the output, so we are storing, right? Instead of storing here in a data item, we need to store this in data dot, just a minute, results. So we are picking the result, store it in, so result. So here, so we need to use store it in data dot, so your result, right? We have to give, so instead of, so but we don't want this, right? We don't want to store the result into this data item, so not here. So in a process studio, let me go to process studio. Yes, here, see this, here the result we are getting. So here we are so giving that result here, right, in a output, but we don't want in the output, so we want that result in your collection. So come to the output. See this, instead of this data dot, sometimes it will not accept, we need to type data dot. So what is your column name where you need to store in a result? Copy this process, you need to store it here. Now whatever the value will come to this result, it will store it back to your collection. So now when you are running this, so it will pick the values from the collection, it will give it to your, so each and every action, and then we are going to store back again into your collection field. So this one, so we are going to, so this is not required, so you are going to see the result of this particular thing in this particular collection, right? Okay. So now reset it, save this one. Now we'll see so how it is going to run. So now let me run this. Observe this. Launch. It's trying to launch, and then we have given some wait option as well. Okay, it has picked first value, and then it is trying to convert. So this, it's picked the second value, and then it has taken the result. It's going for the next value. Okay, that's each and every value it is picking from your so collection, and then so it is going to give that result into your data item. If you observe here, let me go to this. Okay. So that's fine. So it is finished. Observe this in a collection. Come to the current value. finish. So we have around 9 records, right? Each and every value it is picking and it is giving to your so application here, right? So this you can able to see the result for each and every value, and then you can able to understand this. Here only the thing you need to understand is how to pick the, so give the input parameters, how to pass the input parameters, that is more important thing. So here, so any application, the requirement is the same, it will be the same. So only the application will change. Approach will be the same. You are going to get the values from Excel or database. We will see how to pick the values from database in later classes. Now we have picked the data from Excel. We have to give it to collection. Collection means we are using a loop. After that, we have to create a application actions. Once it is done, again we are writing it back to your collection data. So how come the collection values it is giving to this application? You are using input and output parameters. Where you are using the values, there we need to create a parameter. Where you are calling the process, calling the actions, there you are going to assign the value for parameter. Now it's done, right? If you observe here current values, see this, all the values are converted and we can able to see the result here. Now so what you want to do, if you want to write from this collection, so if you want to save it in a separate action, you can use write action here. So that's it. Understood, right? So now, so what we have discussed today, so what we have done, so we pick the value from free Excel, create instance, open workbook, get worksheet as a collection. After that, as usual, we are using launch. Here one thing remember, launch we have to use outside of your loop always. Launch you have to use outside of your loop. If you use launch inside of the loop, your application will, first time it will work, second time when it is trying to go for a loop for the second record, it will fail because the application is already launched. Okay, sometimes in some browsers it will work well and good, so without any issues. If you have any issues with the browser, sometimes your browser is having like caches and then it is so picking the values, storing the values. Okay, some browsers it will be there. Then what you need to do is you need to uncheck some properties here, then it will work properly. So first record you will get the result. For the second record sometimes you will not get result, it will throw error, element is already available. So for that what we need to do is we need to uncheck. I will show you what all the things we need to uncheck. Uncheck input, input type, input type, input identifier, identifier, and then ID. So these are the things we need to uncheck. So try to uncheck this. It means if you have these values, input type, input identifier, input ID, some browsers what it will do is it will so try to catch the first value and it will store it in a browser. Second time when it is working, again it will try to give the same value from the browser. That's why we need to uncheck input type, identifier, and then ID, then it will work properly. I will show you here. So where you need to do that. Come to the process studio and then so come to the object. Here application modular. Observe this. When we created a element in amount element, what all the options it has been checked? ID, input identifier, input type, path, and name, right? All these things. So first priority will be so uncheck. So input identifier and then input ID. See this amount and amount, right? Input identifier, input ID. So try to run it. If it is working well and good, then it is fine. So if it is still it is not working, then so try to uncheck input type as well. In only some browsers, you will have you will get this issue. So remaining, so every browser you will it will work properly without any issue. So now if you observe here, so it's working properly, right? So we are not doing anything, right? So remember, so input type and then input type ID and identifier. Okay, first will be so input ID and input identifier. So next will be input type. Try to implement these things. Okay, so try the same example, try to implement that. So you need to be very familiar with so assigning input parameters and output parameters, where we are creating input parameters here. So in a process studio, you need to assign the values. In object studio, go to amount, for example. Here in a start page where we are using, we need to create a parameter. We need to assign the value here. The whatever the value, you are going to store it in a data item. The same value you are going to give it to your amount field. And then so from where you have to get this value, you have to so to get this value from process studio amount. Once you created a parameter, you can able to see that values here, parameter values. This parameter we need to pass a value through collection dot field name. Remember this, collection dot field name, we have to do this. Okay, so try to implement the same thing. Okay, so any questions here?